Hi friends, this is Professor Val and I'm just going to do a real super quick intro to Clip Studio Paint. I'll try not to get on too many tangents, I tend to do that. I'll try to stay focused. First of all, first disclaimer is that your screen may not look exactly like this. I'm using my Mac desktop right now. Some of my other videos I have, I'm on my iPad. They will all look slightly different, but in general, it's the same concept, the same tools. So even if mine looks different than yours, like my video screen looks different from what you're looking at, don't panic. And a lot of this is very customizable as well. I also want to say that my screen has this big purple area in the middle here because this is actually my desktop background right here. So that's why it looks like that. So basically it's empty, which is why there's nothing in there on my screen. So if you've used Photoshop before, Clip Studio Paint is very similar to that in how things are set up. At the top, you're gonna have this top bar here. This is pretty standard. This is where you've got like your file, edit, story, layers, windows, all this kind of good stuff that we'll get into more details later. This is where you're going to be able to make a new file right here, file new, is how you're going to create new files. You can open your recent files. You can close files either from here or in here, depending on if you're using Mac or PC. So that's an important one on top. The next most important one here is this kind of toolbar on the side. These are all your drawing tools. So if you are brand stinking new to anything, this is where you're going to be able to find your tools such as your pencils and your inks and your erasers. So try clicking on these little icons on the side and just kind of experiment with them. There's all sorts of fun things in here. If this is your very first time, I want week number 1 to be like experimental click everything week. So just click everything, try different things. For instance, on the inks here, we can see built into Clip Studio Paint, we've got a bunch of different pens just built in by default. And I have these windows open right now. So this one's called Subtool Pen. This one's called Tool Property. And I have this window here called Brush Size. If you don't see these on your screen, you're just going to go to the window on the top bar and look for these names and make sure the check mark is visible. So let's say one isn't visible. If you were to click it on, it should appear here. And if you don't want to see it, then you can always just click it off in the window. So there we go. So it appears and then disappears. You can also, like I said, you can customize this completely. So let's say you don't like having your tool property window right here. I want it to be floating just kind of over here. I want it to be on the right side. You can see how I can kind of click and drag, and wherever it's kind of red, that's where it's going to live now. You can kind of move it. So let's say I want it to live kind of next door to my subtool. You're going to be able to adjust your like windows however you like. So for instance, I got my color wheel over here so I can easily pick my different colors. Some people like it here, some people like it down here. You might like it big over here. You can absolutely customize this however you want. Whatever is easiest for you, just go for it and do that. Let's see. Let me show you how you can create a new file. So let's go to File and then to New. And you're going to see there's all these different options here. For now, just stick with illustration. You're going to make sure your canvas size says at least 300 in here. And right now I have inches. You'll look for px, which is pixels, and you're going to make sure it's at least 2000 by 2000. That's kind of going to be my standard for all assignments. This is a minimum. You can go larger, you can go tall, you can go like landscape size, portrait size, whatever the heck you want, as long as it has that minimum. That way we're not drawing on itty bitty canvases. So let's say we only do 500 by 500. It's going to be a very small area. So we don't want to have an itty bitty space to draw on. We want to make sure we at least have a decent sized file. So let me do a new one. Let's look at 2000 by 2000 now. And so yeah, this is the minimum size I want to see. So like I said, whatever your computer is might be able to handle different stuff. So just make sure this is the minimum for all the assignments for this class. When you're doing your own stuff, like I said, you can do whatever the heck you want. So let me open up, as I wrap this up here pretty soon, let's open up a recent file of mine. This is like an in progress comic page. You're going to see here your layers this is a window that's very important. This is where you're going to like choose which layer is your pencils, what layer is your inks, what layers are colors. And what's really important too, especially for week 1, is to know how to rename your layers. So for instance, I have one here called Text Sketch. If I want to rename this to something else, I'm just going to double click the text and you're going to see now it's editable. So I'll say like new name for layer, and that way you can change it whatever you want. So when you're doing your own arts, like this is kind of like a bonus thing you can do for yourself to keep organized. But for this class, because I'm going to be looking through all your files, you're going to have to name all your layers and folders so I can easily navigate. Because if you've got 90 layers and it's this layer, it's by default they're just kind of named like layer number. You have 46. Because this is like I have 45 layers already, and your file is just full of layers named like this. It's going to be real hard for me to navigate your files. So just make sure you rename your layers for me. And Inker Ink said, I don't know what I'm typing. I'm just typing in letters. I guess it's also important to say to make a new layer. I'm sure I'll say this 1,000 times. New layer is this one that looks like a little post-it note. It's got a little, looks like a blank box with a little plus sign. And to delete a layer, you're just going to click the garbage can. I will also talk about vector layers quite often. So vector layer lives right next to new raster layer. So these ones are important. This is how you make new ones. When you start a new file, you're just going to see layer 1. So yeah, like I said, click this post-it note and you'll make a bunch of new layers, and you can drag and change the order of them. Whatever is on top, the highest layer will be what you see first. So if I were to color in a, this is getting kind of long now. So let's say I do blue here on this layer and red here on this layer, and I just kind of fill it in. Whatever layer is on top is what's going to be most visible. So as you can see, I can drag this layer down, and now it becomes behind there. So those are just kind of the quick basics of how to kind of navigate your file. And I promise that we'll go into more detail, but this is probably enough just to get anyone at least started practicing like how to start drawing stuff. So I hope this is helpful. And I guess once you feel comfortable, move on to the next section.